So we're entering the journey into darkness now. The way that this works in standard Lovecraftesque is you drop all of the roles that you've been using, the narrator, the witness, and the whisperers, and you take turns to just narrate a little snippet of atmospheric detail about how your character is moving further into darkness and closer to the final confrontation that they're going to have with whatever the horror is. For a solo game, clearly there weren't any roles in the first place because you do everything. But nevertheless, you break it down into little snippets, and the purpose of that is to increase the tension and the pace of the story. So I'm going to do that. I've written down myself a little track. So I'm going to do between 12 and 16 little nuggets of description. So I think Paul steps through between the two obelisks and starts to walk up the hill. And I think under his feet, there's a kind of crunch of stones and a squelch of mud as he makes his way through the dark in this cold, dripping environment. And his mind is whirling. He's thinking, where am I going to end up here? He knows that he's near to the moors of the Peak District National Park. I don't know whether that existed back then. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And he could easily get lost and get into more trouble than he would have if he just by being captured by these dangerous people. He's really worrying about where this path is going to take him. But the path gets steeper and harder work, and he's really having to kind of labour to get up this steep path as it takes him up the hill. He's only half certain that he's even on a path anymore. There are trees and undergrowth all around him, which leaves him feeling like he could be pressing straight into disaster. But the bit that he's on, the ground feels a little surer, and he thinks he's following the path, wherever it might lead. And then he comes out onto a flatter area. It is lighter here too, with fewer trees, and the cloud thins a little bit. He can't really see the moon, but he can now see the glow a little bit through the clouds, and it lights up a circle of black stones. So he stands on the edge of this circle of black stones, and right in the middle he can see a kind of pit. It looks like a hole in the ground, a big, wide and rocky pit around which these stones seem to have been arranged. And he just stops and stares at it for a while, wondering what it is he's seeing. There are plenty of quarries with big holes in the ground around here, but nothing like this. Not these weird black stones. The journalist in him is screaming that you have to go on, you have to find out what's going on here. And that's enough to overcome his fear. He steps forward and carefully proceeds up to the edge of this pit, and he can see more of the black stones arranged in some sort of a pattern. It looks kind of geometric. And he gingerly moves down the fairly shallow side of the pit, where he finds a regular opening in the ground. And he steps up to this opening, and he can see it is very faintly lit inside by something that looks a lot like the stuff he saw in that attic. As he's pondering whether to go in or turn back, he hears voices, the shouts of men and women, and he knows he can hear them. They're much closer than they should be. If they were back down at that house, they must have worked out what direction he's gone in, and they're following him. And so he knows he really has no choice about where he goes next. He steps into the doorway, and inside the walls are smooth and dark, and with his fingers he can feel the traceries of those symbols that he saw before. But as he steps further down into what is some sort of passageway corridor, he's seeing little glowing patches of the stuff he saw before, and it's reacting to his presence. He can feel it. It's sort of little nodes of the stuff kind of spidering out towards him. He continues down the corridor. But if we were observing him from behind, we would be able to see that the glowing stuff that was on his back has begun to grow as well. And it is beginning to spider out in the same way, like a cobweb covering his back and growing out over his shoulders, around his waist, and most significantly, it's beginning to grow up the back of his neck, towards the back of his head, towards his brain. So he continues down the corridor. His heart is pounding. He knows now this is not natural. He knows this doesn't make any sense. And a part of him knows that he's not going to be coming back out of this place. But he really has very little choice. If he goes back, it'll be even worse. And now he can see ahead of him a much better lit space outlined the shape of the door. And he takes the decision to go through it. So I think that will do for our journey into darkness. And the next scene will be the final horror. Lovecraftesque second edition is currently crowdfunding on BackerKit. And we are funding a new boxed set full of lovely card prompts and gorgeous art and amazing scenarios. So I really urge you to go and get over there and back it so you can get your copy. And there's a link for that in the show notes of this video.